first one up is discussing Botox and fillers. This is the headline topic. So it was from Page Six. Kristen Davis blasts shame surrounding Botox and filler use after being ridiculed for her own.
Yeah.
So Kristen Davis, for those of you guys that don't know, from Sex and the City,
Charlotte.
So when I think was it the movie or the show came out, and she'd obviously gotten some work done, and then she was obviously chastised for it. As someone who has been very open about, I've had way too much filler and Botox done at different points in my life because I was someone that didn't know to say no when somebody suggested like, oh, we'll do this or we'll do that. I was like, okay, like whatever. And then pretty soon I like didn't recognize myself. I was like, what are we doing here? This is not a good look.
Yeah.
So I think that on some of that stuff, it's like you go to a professional and you think like, oh, they're suggesting the right thing. Well, sometimes in that world, it gets distorted, like what it is that they think you might want. So I empathize with somebody like that like all of a sudden you don't even realize how bad it is until other people point it out. And you're like, oh shit, like that's not a good look. So I think proceed with caution, and more is not always better, especially in that situation. We should still look like ourselves. And the clear scan of your face should say ID recognized, not, whoa, who are you?
Courtney Cox has been really open about this as well, like the fillers. And she said she just overdid it. Look, Kristen Davis says in this article, I've had some good, I've had some bad. I actually had a really bad filler story before. I don't do much of it, but I remember I was obsessed with getting a little under my eye during this season to make you look like you've slept. Well, I actually did massive damage to my eye because she struck a nerve and I ended up looking like I took a hockey puck to the face, which then we were worried about people thinking I took, whatever. My husband was like, people are going to blame me.
Of course.
I ended up having to get a ton of laser. I had a big primetime thing with Stray I had to do. It was like we had to have major makeup on my eye. And now I have a permanent indention in my eye. So for me, I am staying far, far away from fillers. I feel like too, they never know how you're going to take. Like, you know what I mean? You could say you're doing it this way, but your skin you could have a bad reaction. You could hit a nerve. You could hit whatever. I'm fine with Botox. I'm all in. I also love my doctor because he doesn't do a lot, which maybe I need it, but I think less is more.
Definitely. I don't do any fillers anymore. And I used to, because I was like I said, I was like, oh, okay, whatever you think. I also have a very round face. Like, so the more fillers, like then it was like all like cheek, like kind of a thing. Like if I drink too much wine or the salts from our pregame conversation, which is why I don't like salt on the rim, like I retain water really easily. So yeah, Botox on that. But I also have done the strings that like, it's
you
like,
have?
Yeah. So you put it like on your like jawline. Yeah, but they dissolve. They don't last as long. I love them. Like when I first get them done, I am
How do they do that? I want to know because I would love it on my neck.
Yeah, so it's just like it's like a little string thing that they like a needle, and then they pull it back, and it like honestly feels like you're getting like a mini facelift, and it's not as, again, it like they dissolve and they go away. I've done a lot of things that I'm sure are bad for me, but these allegedly aren't bad for you, again, until they are. I mean, what do we know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love it. And then it lasts like 6 weeks because I'm getting that like jowly thing. God, I really need to get a tan. This is crazy. Is this the lighting? I mean, I didn't think I was this white. Anyways, so yeah, so I've done that, but that's the extent of what I got going on now because I mean, we don't need to get looking like a cat. And I've said that a million times.
Me.
Okay. Exactly. Next headline that we are looking at. Which one you want to talk about, babe?
I like the one also Katherine Schwarzenegger begged her dad Arnold to take her to school in a minivan. She was mortified by I guess what her father was driving at the time, which was a Hummer. Completely different situation in my life. I have 2 stories. I was never like super embarrassed of what my parents drove, but it was a running joke in our family. First of all, my dad had a 1981 silver Honda Accord. I think that lasted him about 20 something years. That thing was a tin can. I was like begging my dad to get rid of it. Not because it didn't look cool, but But because once I got past like the whole I'm embarrassed of what my parents are driving, I then started to be worried about my dad's safety. If you're in a wreck in this, dad, you're going to destroy your car and maybe yourself. If there's no airbags, do these seatbelts really work? I mean, the bright red interior, dad, it's not like that should have scared away any car from hitting you. But I mean, the day that
red
Honda,
interior on the silver
God,
board.
the day that thing got like taken away from my parents' house was a big, sad ordeal. We also drove my mom did a blue Volvo station wagon when we first moved to Florida. One thing that happened, this was crazy. So hot in Florida. It could get over 100 degrees in your car, obviously. My mom had us in the back seat and the back window completely shattered from the heat.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, crazy.
That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now I'm safety regulations today of the whole thing on that.
But I was never like super, I mean, my dad's car, yes, he like drove that thing to shit. So kind of, but I was never like, oh my God, don't bring the Hummer.
No, so which speaking of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I know I mentioned it last podcast. I just finished watching his documentary. Highly suggest it. As someone who only knew surface level things about him before, found it very, very interesting and a newfound respect. And he was very honest about the mistakes as well in his life, which I appreciate. I appreciate people that can talk. We'll start with that. And people that can also admit when they were wrong and say, hey, I should have done things differently, when he was talking about his marriage and infidelity and things like that.
Yeah.
So watch that documentary, but also parents. So my dad sold cars for years and then ended up buying into dealerships and ended up owning car dealerships. So you'd think like, oh, I could have like whatever car I wanted. No, not in the Thompson household. It was the complete opposite. It was like, you are going to pay for your car. We're not giving you anything. Like my parents were very much like, you're going to earn anything you have. So my brother and I talk about not safe, a Geo Metro. My brother is 6'5" and was like the quarterback of the high school team. He was the Jake Ryan. He was the senior. I was the sophomore. We both he drove me to school because I was the sophomore. And he's driving in this Geo Metro like this. No joke. It looked like a baseball. It was this
I don't
white
know what
little
that
car.
is.
It's so small. It's like 2 doors. It's like basically like a Mini Cooper before a Mini Cooper or whatever in the States where they've introduced Mini Coopers, but it's so small and no one should be driving one. I do not think they're safe at all. In fact, so much so that his offensive linemen were able to pick the car up from the parking lot and move it. We went out to the parking lot after school one day. The car was not in the same place we parked it. It was like 5, because that's how small it was. So that's not good. We didn't like that. But my parents always had like shitty cars because they had no money. I remember my mom drove a Chevy Citation and she did daycare growing up. And this was before any safety or regulations or anything. We packed that car full of kids. I mean, there's probably like 10 kids when she had to go to the grocery store or something like that. You can't leave all these kids at home. So we piled into that car. And then this is the car that I always wanted, was the station wagon where you could sit backwards and look out the back window.
That was our Volvo.
Do you remember those?
Yes.
Oh my God. I was so jealous. I wanted that so bad.
Yep.
But we didn't have the money for that. So I think we just got in the trunk and looked out the window.
Sure.
Is how we remedied that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can't do any of it. But yeah, I was never, I don't know. I think I just only was embarrassed by my small little Geo Metro because I was like, oh, we're going to die. Anywho. Okay, last but not least, our last headline that I'm going to talk about on this one is things you would never do, bucket list activities, swim with sharks, skydive, bungee jump, etc. This is coming from Drew Rosenhaus forgets negotiations with GMs. I'm wrestling with sharks is the headline on that. Drew Rosenhaus went from being a proverbial shark on Tuesday to wrestling an actual one. A wild scene, all captured on video. Is this TMZ report? I am a daredevil. I'll do anything. I've wanted to swim with sharks when I was covering the World Cup in South Africa. I put my name on the long waiting list, but I wasn't there long enough to actually swim with sharks. So I would love to do that. I jumped out of a plane when Fox was doing their Veterans Salute the Troops stuff. So I was like, if there's ever a time I was going to jump out of a plane, it was with the U.S. Army. So that was awesome. The Tony Gonzalez and I both did that. That was fun. Yeah, I'll try anything. I bungee jumped. I'll try anything once.
I'm good. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm a square and I'm happy with it. I'm good.
You're not alone in that. Not a lot of people want to do
No.
it. I'm just the idiot who's like, let's just see how close I can get to death. You know, why not?
Yeah. Then we used to play on one of the crews that I was on, which is so bad. Death by, well, would you rather? This is what we did. It was a Thursday night crew. It was myself. It was Chris Fowler, Jesse Palmer, and Craig James. Would you rather be in a cage with a grizzly bear, a silverback gorilla, or in a water with a great white shark? All of it awful. Like, this is the shit we talk about instead of Rutgers versus Louisville, you know?
That's the would you rather you're playing. I was playing much different would you rather.
Right.
I mean, there's
That's
those
probably
ones.
they played
Mary
those after
F.
I left.
Kill.
Yeah.
There's those ones. Those are always entertaining.